everybody, and welcome to Everything Vaguely Paranormal. I'm Shelley Pruitt, and my partner in the paranormal, Mr. Blake Smith. How are you this evening, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, despite being woken up weirdly at 3:33 this morning to have to go pee. What an odd time to wake up to have to go pee.
Yeah,
3:33. I don't know.
I
It
wake
was
up a lot at 3:33. Isn't that some kind of like sign that the spirits are trying to get your attention or something like that? That's like some kind of power
um
number.
that's what I hear. I don't know how much water that holds in my opinion. However, we did do a
Not as
little
much as your bladder.
yeah, not as much as my bladder. We did do a little bit of investigating down here in this area yesterday. So that might have had something to do with it. Because
Very much could have.
I've been seeing an old man down here. So we were trying to figure out, who the hell he is.
I wish I could see an old man in my room. Hey.
I bet you do. Santa Claus.
I do. Ho, ho, ho.
But anyways, other than that, I'm doing fantastic. I'm
Good
excited
Easter
about
and
it. Yeah, good Easter. Good Easter. We started some D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. So for you nerds out there, I am joining the fold. I am a first-time dungeon master. If you have any advice, I'll gladly take it.
perfect. And for those of you who know that I have, my baby girl, I'm her boo. And I have literally been instructed that I may not be able to do Easter baskets anymore. 3 words: doo-doo kangaroo. Become a Patreon member and find out what I did.
Wait for tomorrow.
Yeah, wait for tomorrow. Yes. So I have pretty much been told that I may not get to put together the Easter baskets anymore.
That's all right. You're a grandma. That's what's supposed to happen.
That's right. I'm a boo.
You're a boo. You're a boo. Yes.
I'm
sorry,
a boo.
my bad. Mislabeling.
So anyway, tonight I am so excited about our topic tonight. This was a difficult topic to research because it deals with an enslaved person. And because there are not a lot of records kept, the ones that survive, they're sparse, they're sporadic, and there are parts of her life that are missing. And I'm going to tell you something about our topic tonight, Millie Christine. She was a conjoined twin, but you're going to hear me switch back and forth between plural and singular in reference to her. She calls herself she a lot, as if she were one person. But other people refer to her as they or them because 2 heads, 2 bodies, 2 minds, 2 brains. But she considered herself one person, not Millie and Christine. She considered herself one name, Millie Christine.
Oh,
so if you are ready,
okay.
And we're going to get a quick little lesson on twins too, right here at the beginning. So if you are ready, I'm very excited to bring you this story. And I'm probably going to get emotional. I'm probably going to cry because I haven't made it through it yet, reading it without doing it. But
that's all right.
You'll probably be right there with me.
I'll send the virtual tears.
All right.
I mean, tissues. Tears.
Whatever.
Whatever.
At this point, it's fine. So if you are ready,
yep.
I'm ready to jump in and tell you the story of Millie Christine McKoy.
Let's do it.
So here we go. Twins fascinate us. 2 individuals that have different personalities, different thoughts, but the same face. Identical twins share 100% of their DNA, while fraternal twins are no more genetically alike than regular siblings. And twins have always sparked curiosity, folklore, and scientific interest. They sit at an interesting crossroad of science and mystery, and everyone notices twins. But what if the twins were even more extraordinary? What if they were conjoined? 2 brains, 2 souls, but only 1 body. Now, conjoined twins occur when the fertilized egg does not fully split during the process of forming identical twins. It's a rare phenomenon that occurs once in every 50,000 to 200,000 births, with a slightly higher percentage occurring in Southwest Asia and in Africa. Now, half of these twins are stillborn, and 1/3 die within 24 hours of birth. But most live births are females with a ratio of 3 to 1. as being successful.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the ladies are a little bit stronger where that goes.
Huh.
So the earliest depiction of conjoined twins is found in the ceramics of the Mochi culture of ancient Peru in 300 AD. Now, in 415 AD, St. Augustine of Hippo wrote in his book, City of God, about a man that was double in his upper, but single in his lower half, having 2 heads, 2 chests, 4 hands, but 1 body and 2 feet, like an ordinary man. And one of the earliest documented cases of conjoined twins, whose names are known, comes from England, and they were called the Biddenden Maids, Eliza and Mary Chulkhurst, and they lived from 11,000 to 1134, and they were joined at the hip and the shoulder. Now, there are many ways that twins can be conjoined. The most famous set of conjoined twins are Chang and Ang Bunker.
Mm-hmm.
Born in 1811 and passing away at the age of 62 years, 8 months, 6 days in 1874. They were born in Siam, which is now modern-day Thailand, and this is where the term Siamese twins originates. Just so you know, it was never meant as some kind of slur or anything like that. It was only to denote the country of origin of Chang and Ang Bunker. Now, the men were conjoined at the sternum by their xiphoid cartilage. So the xiphoid cartilage in the pictures is the red area, and it's located right in the center of your sternum. And it's the connective tissue of the abdominal diaphragm, which is what's necessary for breathing, and the rectus abdominis muscles, also known as your abs. So we can go to the next picture. So this is where, and this is an x-ray of what conjoined twins joined at the xiphoid cartilage look like. So you can see they're attached right in their sternum area.
Yes.
And this is an x-ray of conjoined infants right after they're born. So
it's interesting because when what I know in modern sense, TV, I guess now would be memes and stuff like that. But back in the day, kiddos, there were things like TV, crazy TLC shows that I absolutely love. I think we all loved. But you see them conjoined in different areas, some by the face, some by, but I don't know. I don't guess I ever realized that Chang and Eng Bunker were conjoined at the sternum, specifically their xiphoid cartilage.
Right.
Interesting.
So it's interesting that you bring up the TLC shows because we are going to go into a couple of those twins.
Ooh.
So
okay.
The next ones we're going to talk about are Lori and Dory, also known as George Chappelle, who was born in the United States in I left off the last letter. I believe it was 1964. And they were craniopagus conjoined twins. And this is one of the rarest forms of conjoined twins, occurring in roughly 1 in every 2.5 million births.
Okay.
Craniopagus twins are joined at the skull, and they frequently share dual venous sinuses. The brains are separated by membranes, but may interlock with pronounced brain compression. Now, the children spent the first 24 years of their life in a Pennsylvania institution for the mentally disabled, even though they were not. Dory changed her name to George because the gender identity chosen was male. And the Guinness Book of World Records declared Lori and George as the first set of conjoined twins to have different gender identities. So on the left-hand side of your screen, the person facing you is Lori. On the right-hand side of your screen, the person facing you is Dory, who changed her name to Reba, who then changed the name to George because she identified more as a male.
Okay.
And they passed away on April 7th of 2024.
Oh my God, like today.
Today
wow.
was the day that they had passed in 2024. Now, the next picture you're going to see is the x-ray of how craniopagus twins are joined. So you see that the skull is what is actually fused together. Most
Mhm.
of them have two fully formed bodies. Lori and George also had two fully formed bodies, but George's body was much smaller and shorter, and they were identical twins. Um, so that is basically, you can see the x-rays of how the skulls are fused together in that manner.
Wow.
And this was fascinating. I ran down such a rabbit hole. There are so many different kinds of conjoined twins, and I wanted to show you an x-ray picture of every one so that you could see how it is. But in that case, we would be here all night.
We'd never get to Millie Christine.
No. So our next set of twins are Abby and Brittany Hensel, who were born in 1990 in Minnesota. They are dicephalic parapagus twins. And this type of conjoined twins has two separate heads, side by side on a single torso, and they share a body. Now, Abby and Brittany each have a brain, a heart, a stomach, a pair of lungs, a spine, and a spinal cord, and each control one arm and one leg on their respective sides of the body. Abby, who is on the right, controls the right side of the body, and Brittany controls the left. Now, they had their own reality show in 2012 on TLC called Abby and Brittany. Currently, they are fifth grade teachers in Minnesota. And this type of conjoined twin rarely survives into adulthood. And in searching, I could only find one other documented set of twins that is potentially still alive in Turkey. But the last thing that I have seen posted or read about them, and I looked, was from 2024. So Abby and Brittany may be the only set of dicephalic parapagus twins that are still alive right now.
It's crazy to me, the numbers at the beginning, the 1 in 50,000 to 200,000 births. That seems like it would be a lot for this medical phenomenon to take place. But I guess once you add in the mortality rate and all that stuff, it makes much more sense of like, I'm glad you gave that information, because I was like, in my head, I'm like, that's a lot. Why isn't there a lot more studied on that? And, I'm sure that there is,
Well, it's because most conjoined twins are either stillborn or die within the first 72 hours to within the first hours to the first months of life, based on because something isn't right. They not everything happened the way it was supposed to. So go ahead and pull up this next. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, Abby and Brittany Hensel are the two, obviously, that I know the most of because of the TLC show.
Right. And so I'm going to show you what you're going to see. This is Abby and Brittany Hensel's actual x-ray on the right side of the screen.
Oh, wow.
This was on their TLC show. They showed how the twins were actually conjoined. And you can see they have two separate spines. On the left-hand side is a diagram of what they would look like, what they do look like skeletally. But on the right is their actual x-ray of their own spine and neck and heads.
Somebody asked in your research over Abby and Brittany, which I know you probably didn't go too far down because you were just pulling.
Oh, yeah, I did. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, do you know if they ever had a child?
They do not have a child. They were photographed in 2024 carrying a car seat with a baby, but that is not their child.
Oh, okay.
So they do not have a baby. However, Abby is married. If you'll go back one picture where she's there, that is, I believe, Abby's husband.
Oh, okay.
And so Abby is married, but Brittany is not.
Very cool.
So there you go. So now that you kind of have an idea of what conjoined twins, some of the things that go through, kind of what their skeletal structure looks like, we're going to go on to our story about Millie Christine McKoy. Now, on a plantation in Whiteville, North Carolina, in the dim quiet of dawn, Monimia McKoy labored. She took deep, ragged breaths as she struggled to deliver the child. She'd done this before, 7 times, but none had felt like this. This time something was different. Her husband, Jacob, could do nothing but wait. And the midwife knew that something was not right. The birth was taking much too long, and Monimia was growing tired. So the midwife urged the exhausted mother to push. And using the last bit of her strength, Monimia bore down, and she delivered her child. And the room went silent. Friday morning, July 11th, 1851, under the worn rafters of a slave cabin, the little girls drew their first breath. Get emotional about this.
Yeah.
2 heads, 2 faces, 2 bodies, one attached to the other, physically bound together forever. And the babies weighed 17 pounds at birth. Christine weighed 12 pounds, and little Millie weighed only 5. Now the midwife whispered a startled prayer as the children began to cry. And the midwife was unsure if she had helped deliver a child or something else.
Mm.
But in that moment, as they were placed into their mother's trembling arms, they were simply 2 babies being warmed by a single thin blanket. And as Monimia touched the place where the bodies were fused together, she didn't see 2 children. She saw one, and she called them Millie Christine. The twin girls were born conjoined. Today, they would have been diagnosed as Pyapagus twins, meaning they were joined in the sacral region, fused together at the posterior pelvis, back to back. And from the moment they were born, they were a medical rarity, and in the eyes of others, a financial opportunity. So you can go, would you put that picture back up real quick? I want to tell you something. So any mothers who have ever delivered a child, can you imagine? 2 babies have to be born at the same time. One is 12 pounds and the other is 5. And they cannot be separated. This is what this mother labored in a cabin with nothing more than a midwife to deliver these babies. The chances that they were even born alive was slim to none. But they made it.
It's the fact that, like, what you just said, though, in their delivery of, like, that they were the medical rarity in the eyes of others, and in the eyes of others, a financial opportunity. I hate this time period when it comes to medical rarities like this, because it makes my skin crawl knowing that these beautiful babies were just born. Yes, conjoined sisters. And already people were like, oh, yeah, we can do something with this.
Right. Now, Jacob and Monimia were enslaved by a farmer and blacksmith named Jabez McKay in Columbus County, North Carolina. And Millie Christine was born into a world where choices for her didn't exist. A world where family members were bought and sold and where her value was calculated in dollars. And the news of the unusual birth spread quickly across the fields. The children were thought to be an omen. But what kind of omen, no one was sure. No one was sure. Now, Monimia was a deeply religious woman, and she believed her daughters were not a punishment, but a test. Her husband, Jacob, he was quieter and more cautious. And he understood something from the moment the children were born. Children like this would never be left alone. And he was right. Sorry, I keep getting upset about this. Protection was something that Jacob and Monimia could not provide their daughters. Being enslaved, the rights of ownership were inscribed in law and upheld with force. To Jabez McKay, they were a disruption to the predictable arithmetic of slave ownership. How would they be able to work? Would they even be able to walk? And if sold, would he ask for the price of 2 slaves or just 1? Yes, their arrival was a distraction to his farm and his business. But when McKay cast his eyes on the girls, he knew they were valuable, and he studied them, not as a man looking at children, but like a man who was evaluating his livestock.
I hate this man already.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
So I know this is telling you, it gets me upset. And as the months passed, curious friends and strangers that had heard rumors of the unusual children began to show up on the McKay property. Now, the frequent intrusions of uninvited guests annoyed McKay. But one day, a slick South Carolina exhibitor named John C. Purvis knocked on the door. He was a showman with an eye for profit, and he too wanted to see the twins. So as Purvis looked the children over, he knew that they would draw a crowd, and he wanted to make a deal. And so the negotiations began. And while no one knows exactly what was said in the conversation, but Purvis was shrewd, and McKay, he'd been in the slave trade for a while. So when the agreement was reached, the two men shook hands. And Millie Christine was sold to John Purvis for $1,000 in cash. Now, in today's money, that's the equivalent of $42,439.61. The little girls were loaded into the back of a wagon and covered with a cloth, and their frightened cries could be heard across the farm as the stranger departed. Millie Christine was only 10 months old. Now, some versions of the story state that McKay sold the girls on the condition that their mother was allowed to go with them. But this seems unlikely. Slave owners would not willingly part with a slave in childbearing years without extra compensation. And let's be very clear, Purvis wasn't a doctor. He wasn't a caretaker. He was a traveling exhibitor and salesman. And he wasn't purchasing workers. He was buying a curiosity. And he certainly was not equipped to handle the special needs of the little girls. Now, exactly how long Millie Christine was in his custody is not known. But the few records that remain suggest that he moved between local fairs and small venues for several months. And Purvis had begun exhibiting them. They were fragile infants held up in front of paying crowds. And he treated the twins as an attraction, one among many. And it wasn't long until the children were sold again. A man known only as Brower saw the children at an exhibit, and he knew the kind of money that they could earn him. He was a much more ambitious promoter. So Brower approached Purvis to inquire as to the price of the twins, and if Purvis were the legal owner, would he be willing to sell them? The sly showman thought for a moment, and he agreed. That was if the price was suitable. And again, the negotiations began over Millie Christine. The reported agreed upon price ranges from $5,000 to $10,000. Let's put that in today's money. $5,000 in today's money would be $212,198. If the sale was actually for $10,000, it would have been $424,396 in today's money. But there was a small problem with the sale. Brower didn't actually have the cash. So he sought out a wealthy merchant named Joseph P. Smith to back his purchase and provide the money. Now, Brower promised that there would be big returns on the investment and that Smith would be listed as the legal owners of the girl in the sale. Brower would promote them, tour them, and exhibit them, but Smith would own them. Well, these terms seemed acceptable to Smith, and he provided the cash. But Joseph Smith did have a few provisions that he required. He insisted that a nurse most likely an enslaved woman,
Mm-hmm.
be procured to care for the children. Infancy is difficult under the best circumstances, but for Millie Christine, it was precarious. Feeding them required care and coordination, and illness could be spread between them through their shared systems. So, in order to protect his investment, Smith insisted a nurse would be tasked with the duty of keeping the two infants alive that were connected in one body. And Smith knew exactly what he had acquired, something rare enough to draw crowds and make money. But first, they had to survive.
And that was probably a smart move because, yes, back in that time, typically whenever it's horrible that I even know some of this information, but typically whenever an infant would be traded, that's where the wet nurse,
Correct.
that term came in, is to care for this infant, to feed this infant.
Mm-hmm. So it was usually an enslaved woman,
and it was usually a slave woman
who already had a child of roughly the same age.
Yep, and so therefore provided breastfeeding to be able to nurture and care for the child, to keep them alive and feed them. So it wouldn't. I just want to touch on back about the mom being sold with them. I don't think that would have happened either, because unfortunately she still would have been seen as monetary gains, profit gains at that point, because she would have been in childbearing years, as you said. So more than likely what happened was a wet nurse was established for these two girls.
Right. Yeah. And here's the thing too. It never said that the mother was sold. Everything I read said, in some of the stories, it said that the mother was allowed to go. Was allowed to do. That would not have happened.
No.
So I think that is someone sanitizing history a little bit, but
right.
It's more than likely that Monimia was not allowed to go with her child.
Right.
So Brower took possession of the children, and he exhibited them at the very first North Carolina State Fair in October of 1853. And Brower billed them as the Carolina Twins. And the crowds gathered to see if they were real. And after a successful debut at the fair, Brower packed up Millie Christine and headed for New Orleans. And he brought in doctors to examine the girls, to produce verification that they were legitimately one person. And he was eager to show off the girls to traveling physicians, amateur scientists, and eager gawkers. But some spectators still argued that the children were nothing more than a gaffe. So more doctors were brought in, more examinations were conducted, and more certificates were produced. And sometimes the girls were exhibited with little clothing or naked to prove that they were indeed joined. And the exhibitions continued. That upsets me so much. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
And the exhibitions continued, and the money flowed.
Are they still around the same age at this point?
Yeah.
Roughly?
Yes, because Brower, we're not exactly sure how long that they were in Purvis's care. So it's estimated that they are between 10 months and 2 years of age at this point.
Okay.
And Brower is having these little, 10, 12, 16-month-old babies naked on a stage for people to look at, to touch and see that their backs are joined. Just disgusting.
Yeah.
But you see, the money kept flowing. But Brower was a greedy man, and he wanted more. He wanted a fortune. And then he met a man from Texas that would change everything. Now, in everything I looked for, the man's name is never mentioned in historical records. He is only known as a Texas speculator and land agent. And he had seen the Millie Christine show and taken note of the large crowds that they drew. And most assuredly, he was counting the profits in his head. And he approached Brower with an offer. $45,000 worth of Texas land in exchange for the twins. The sum was staggering. It was the equivalent of $1,909,782.47. It's the equivalent of $1.9 million in today's money. Now, Brower thought for only a moment before he accepted the deal, and he did not consult Joseph Smith, the legal owner of the children, because Brower reasoned that Smith would be so happy with the large windfall that any disagreement would be quickly quieted. And with that, the deal was done. The Texan gave Brower the deed to the parcel of land and left with Millie Christine that day. The Texas landman immediately booked the children to be exhibited at the Colonel John H. Woods Museum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And then the Texan put the girls on display at P.T. Barnum's American Museum in downtown Manhattan. And with his future secured, Brower headed to Texas to claim his land. But the land? It didn't exist. The deeds were fraudulent and worthless, and Brower had been swindled. It was even worse. He had to tell Joseph Smith that he was broke and Millie Christine had been stolen. Well, Joseph Smith leapt into action, and he began to search for the twins. And within weeks, Smith learned where the children were being exhibited, and he beseeched the local officials to intervene to free the girls on the grounds that they were, the grounds are great, on the grounds that they were enslaved in a free state. But before any court papers could be served, the Texans spirited them away. The twins weren't just taken across state lines. They were moved strategically. They were transported north, then placed on a ship bound for England. Now I'm going to quote something here. Hearing a rumor that 2 little black girls had been booked passage and cargo on a ship, Joseph Smith raced north with his attorney, and they arrived in New York. But they arrived a few hours after the ship had sailed. The Texan disappeared, and the girls disappeared with him. Millie Christine had been kidnapped.
Motherfucker booked them in cargo? Oh, God, I hope you burn in hell.
Traveling in cargo. Yes.
Oh, my God. Wow. Wow.
But let's be very clear here. They were kidnapped, but not in the sentimental sense, but in the blunt transactional reality of the time. They were considered property that one man had stolen from another. Now, once in England, the Texas trickster rebranded the children as the African twins. And the exhibits began again, but never staying in one place for too long to avoid being tracked. Most of the displays were for 1 or 2 nights with multiple appearances in a single day. And the nurse who had been attending the girls most likely was separated from them. And their care became uncertain. They were toddlers, fragile, dependent, medically complex, being transported and exhibited under very unstable conditions. But they were still shown to audiences who gasped in amazement and clamored for more. And for years, no one back home knew where they were. Now, during their abduction, Millie Christine learned to walk. Now, it was a difficult task. The girls had to learn to coordinate their bodies to move together in a sidestepping motion. They sat at angles to each other, and when one turned, the other compensated. And with practiced cooperation, the girls managed to stand, to walk, and to move in a strange harmony. But Joseph Smith had not given up. He was a businessman and much more structured than the men before him with means and money. And he refused to accept the loss of the girls. He hired a detective to find the children. So the detective set off for England, and for 3 years, the detective searched in ports, carnivals, sideshows, and fairs. He bought information and listened for rumors of two-headed girls. And finally, in Birmingham, England, he found them. The detective sent word to Joseph Smith, but he did not immediately approach. He observed the children and followed them while he waited for Smith to arrive. Now, upon receiving the news, Smith traveled to North Carolina to get the twins' mother, Monimia, and the pair boarded a ship along with Smith's lawyer and set sail to England. Now, when they arrived, they met with the detective who led them to the children, and Smith demanded the return of his property and sought assistance from law enforcement. Now, in England, American legal claims were harder to enforce, but Joseph Smith still fought to get them back, not because the law recognized their humanity, but because the law recognized ownership. So he filed suit, arguing that they were his property and they had been unlawfully taken. Well, the kidnapper tried to claim legitimate custody of Millie Christine and even bribed a woman to lie and state that she was actually the girl's mother. Well, the authorities, unsure what to do, allowed the girls to stay in the care of the Texan while the case was sorted out in an English court. And as the case dragged on, the children continued to be exhibited. Finally, it was Monimia that was called to testify. It's reported that she spoke with such tenderness and love for her children that the judges ruled that the girls must be hers and that they must be returned to her. Joseph Smith had won the case, and the judges ordered that Millie Christine be returned. And Monimia was waiting as well. Imagine that moment. A mother who had lost her children not once but twice, finally seeing them again. They were older, they had changed, but they were unmistakable. And she was able to put her arms around them once more. There is no direct quote from that moment, but it's a moment that every parent can understand. They quickly boarded a ship and escaped back to America with the twins, leaving the Texan behind. So, what happened to the Texan? And this is where history is frustrating. And I looked, but there is no clear record of any legal punishment for the Texan who orchestrated the fraud. Most likely he got away with it because the transaction involved enslaved people with no legal standing. Also, the deal would have been considered civil and not criminal in many jurisdictions. And movement across state lines and borders complicated the enforcement. So, most likely, he got off scot-free.
I wish he would have found something where it was like he fell off the side of a ship and into the
I dug and dug and dug for almost 6 hours total, trying to find anything about what happened
to him.
Mm-hmm.
God, man. Jeez. I mean, I don't like any of them in this story. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, at first when you were like they went back to Monimia, I was like, yes, and then I was like, wait a minute, that's not necessarily a good thing.
She's still enslaved.
Yeah, that God.
Well, technically, they went back to Joseph Smith.
Yeah, yeah.
So the girls were recovered, but not through justice.
And sorry, before you go on, I am going to say this: I have family. Yes, Smith is my last name. I have family up in that northern area, and I have a lot of Joseph Smiths in my family. Let me find out that I'm related to this motherfucker, and I'm going to send ancestral lines back through.
Before you make any judgments,
okay,
let me finish my
I don't
story.
like him. Okay.
No. Your opinion might change.
Okay, all right, I'll be quiet.
So the girls were recovered, but not through justice. They were recovered through persistence. And they were now 5 years old. Now, once back in America, Millie Christine came under the care of Joseph Smith and his wife Mary. Aren't they sweet in that
I
picture?
know, that is such a cute picture.
And that is the only picture of them at that age that I could find. You have no idea how many pictures I looked for. And that is one that was on the Sotheby's auction site. It was one of the few of her at that age. And is she not just the sweetest baby?
Yes. Oh, God.
So Millie Christine came under the care of Joseph Smith and his wife Mary. Again, they were legally his property. But as they grew, something shifted. The girls weren't in survival mode anymore. They were learning and they were thriving. And each twin developed her own personality. Christine was more outgoing and lively, and Millie was more shy and quiet, but they functioned as a coordinated pair. They learned to move together with surprising grace, and doctors examined them frequently, documenting their anatomy and their behavior. And they noted how each girl controlled one side of the body, yet they could still synchronize their movements. And the doctors also noted that they shared circulatory systems, which meant illness was extremely dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But the children proved resilient. Now, Mary Smith, she fell in love with the bright, kind little girls, and she doted on them, and she decided that they should be educated. Now, this was risky. In pre-Civil War years, it was illegal to educate slaves. But Mary was undeterred and didn't believe that anyone should be denied an education. So she taught the girls to read and write. And then she hired tutors to give them dance lessons and lessons in religion. But when she heard them sing, that voice, or rather, those voices, took her breath away. So she gave them lessons in music, and they practiced harmonizing, blending both voices into beautiful sound. They learned to sing not just naturally, but also technically. Mary had tutors to teach them to play the piano so they could accompany themselves. The children were also given tutors for languages, and they learned proper English, French, German, and Spanish.
Wow.
That's right. And Millie Christine was so bright that she absorbed all that knowledge like a sponge. And in her own written memoir, they described this period of their life with a quiet pride about their accomplishments. And they attribute their successful learning to practice. And that word practice matters because nothing about their life was automatic. The young girls, born into slavery, had become refined, graceful, and cultured. And in this period of learning away from the stage, they received an invitation to meet Queen Victoria. And of course, they couldn't refuse. So Joseph and Mary Smith escorted Millie Christine to England to meet the Queen. I love that picture of Millie Christine, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I love that picture.
Yeah, that's
love
a good
it.
one.
And they're probably about, they might be close to 11 there. So anyway, according to the records, the entourage met with Queen Victoria at Osborne House, where she kindly conversed with the sisters. And it is not known if they sang or performed in any way. But when the visit concluded, Victoria presented the girls with matching diamond hair clips as a token of royal favor. And Millie Christine treasured these gifts for the rest of their lives. Now, in 1861, Civil War broke out, and Millie Christine still lived with the Smiths in North Carolina. Joseph and Mary protected her, and they kept her safe. And when the war ended in May of 1865, the emancipation freed them legally in 1863. And even though they were free, they chose to stay with the Smiths. And by choice, they decided to re-enter show business. They joined P.T. Barnum's circus and traveled around the country performing under the name the Two-Headed Nightingale, the Two-Headed Lady, and the Eighth Wonder of the World. They were not only marketable, but also genuinely skilled. On stage, the gas lights flickered, and as the curtains parted, the young women would step forward, and they would sing. Millie sang alto and Christine sang soprano in perfect duet, two voices in perfect harmony. And the audiences were spellbound by the beauty of their songs. And when the last note was sung, the audiences erupted into thunderous applause and cheering for more. Millie Christine was no longer just a spectacle. She was a performer.
I love that. I love that it was like by their choice or her choice.
That's right.
That, no, we're going to go back into show business.
That's right. They described their work with dignity, stating, "We have endeavored to improve the talents which God has given us." And they enchanted audiences with their original songs and harmonies. And they published one of their original songs about being a wondrous creature of God in their memoir. Now, traveling all over the world, they brought in huge audiences. They were still advertised as spectacle, but their performances shifted the focus. They weren't just something to look at. They were someone to listen to. And as they toured the United States, England, and Europe, they found that European audiences, while still curious, placed a much higher value on refinement and quality of their performance. Millie Christine's reputation grew to the point where they were no longer just exhibited. They were presented. And that's a big difference in the world of showbiz. Presented, you're a headliner. You're a special engagement. If you're just exhibited, you're one of many. So now, even though they were free, it did not mean that they had freedom. It just meant that they were no longer legally owned. And freedom didn't give them instant control over their lives. That came gradually. They adopted the last name of McKoy, which was derived from their first owner's name of McKay. Now, this was not unusual, but they didn't want to take the name McKay, so they varied it slightly. Now, Joseph Smith had overseen their finances. He was a smart businessman, but he took the time to teach the young women about money and about managing it successfully. And gradually, they gained control over their finances. It was their choices, their decisions, and their futures. And having spent their early lives being moved, displayed, and fought over, they understood something that most people never had to learn. If they didn't take control of their lives, someone else would. So they reshaped their public image. They spoke with confidence, they dressed elegantly, and they emphasized their education and musical abilities. And they earned money, real money. By the 1870s, each sister was reportedly earning $25,000 per season, which in today's money is $816,962.50 each. And that's in a 2026 monetary value.
Damn, get it.
Get it, Millie Christine. I'm here for it. And they accumulated enough wealth to do something almost unthinkable, given where they had started. They bought land, but not just any land. They bought Jabez McKay's land, the land where they had been born into slavery in North Carolina. Now, Millie Christine used, I don't have to do any more about that. That kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful.
That is, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Now, Millie Christine used their money deliberately. They sent money home to support their parents. They gave generously to churches and funded education for Black children. And in their writings, it is clear that they felt a sense of responsibility, stating, "We have sought to be useful and to do good where we could." Now, when they retired from the stage, they were wealthy women, and they returned home to North Carolina and a comfortable life on Welch's Creek. They never married. They had devoted their lives to each other. And in their later years, they lived more quietly, and occasionally they would be enticed to perform. Neighbors knew them as polite, religious, and generous. And Millie Christine attended church regularly and openly spoke about their condition. They framed it as God's will rather than something to resent. And their daily life was still complex. They had to agree on everything: when to wake up, when to rest, how to move. Sleep required coordination, and any illness affected them both. Their bodies, shared as they were, placed constant demands on their ability to cooperate. And yet they managed it. And then illness came. In 1912, Millie fell ill with tuberculosis, and by default, so did Christine. Millie passed away on October the 8th, and on October the 9th, 17 hours later, Christine followed her sister. They were interred together in Welch's Creek Cemetery under a single headstone that reads, "A soul with two thoughts, two hearts that beat as one." Millie Christine McKoy, conjoined twins, were born into slavery. She was sold as an infant, kidnapped, studied, and exhibited. She was moved from place to place without choice. These facts make their story even more extraordinary. They were two women in one body, navigating a world that never quite knew how to see them. So they decided for themselves how they would be seen. They took control where they could and when they could. They became educated, multilingual performers, and they chose to move with dignity and grace. Millie Christine built a life that carried dignity. Listening to their own words, not the headlines or posters, there is something steady, measured, and thoughtful. They never denied what they were, but they refused to be reduced to it or defined by it. They wrote their own story. They emphasized their humanity, and in their own words, they felt as if they were as but one person. And one of the most often asked questions was, "Are you one person or two?" Millie Christine's answer was consistent. "We are two persons, but our interests, we are one." The balance of difference and unity was truly what defined them. They learned, they adapted, and they survived with grace and dignity. And it has been my honor to tell you the story of Millie Christine McKoy.
Amazing ending.
Amazing story.
Amazing
story.
Listen, because here's the thing. After your Julia Pastrana episode, I was a little weary to sit down for this one.
This one, for all accounts, has a happy ending.
Yes, for all accounts. The only thing that got me a little bit, kind of felt a little lump in my throat was that Millie died October 8th, and Christine followed 17 hours later. And the only thing that I can think of is it was the first time in her life that she was without her sister for 17 hours.
The first time they were ever separated. Yeah. That got me too. Why do you think I got choked up right there? I had the exact same thought that went through my head when I saw it, because their headstone says Millie, October 8th, Christine, October 9th.
And what a way to turn around your story. Not only that, but you go and you buy the land on
That's
which
right.
you were born into slavery on as a big, huge power move
That's
to
right.
say, no, this is mine now. I own
That's
this
right.
now. Like, wow. Amazing. I'm in love with well,
I am
okay.
in love with them
I'm in love
too.
with her. I'm gonna say them and her because
They went by both sometimes,
yeah,
and that's why you kept hearing me switch from she to them to girls to a singular, because
yes,
that even in her own writings, in her she she wrote her own memoirs,
yeah.
and it's not a thick pamphlet, but she also wrote little pamphlets, but it's not a thick book. You can actually find copies of it on Amazon, and it's her story in her words. um some of it's pretty heartbreaking, where she
Yeah.
basically says that she was kidnapped, she was taken away from anyone who had any cause to care for her. And it- and she does write a lot in the first person. She says I, me, not we.
Hmm.
And her mother always called them Millie Christine, one name.
Right.
Her mother saw them as one child. So it's a little confusing. So when I first started researching, I would find stuff and it would say she, and I'm like, well, no, which she, Millie
Right.
or Christine? No,
It's more collective
it was
in
the
that sense.
collective. They considered themselves, they were two persons, but they were one soul. You know,
I mean, listen, what would they
is
call
this
it? What
not one of the most beautiful endings to a story? I'm sorry. Go
yes,
ahead.
it is, and I'm sorry, but what would they call it these days? I'm gonna age myself. What do the kids say? They're a baddie? Like, I mean, this is like a baddie. Like, you ended on like such a good freaking note. Like, I mean, come on, you were making together $1.6 million by the time that you decided to retire from show business, and you
That
completely
was per
took
season.
took the reins of your life, and we're like, nah, this isn't how it ends. Like, we're gonna go on and we're gonna do this our way now. Now that we have the ability to do so, we're gonna go do it our way now. I find that
So
fascinating. That's bad bitch
probably
vibes. I'm gonna shout out bad bitch vibes.
so what I'm going to tell you is I know that you said something about you have some Joseph Smiths in your family.
Yeah, I have a lot.
Before you go hating on him too much, he was probably the best thing that could have happened to them,
True.
because when they were stolen, he went to find them.
Yeah.
He brought them back. His wife fell in love with the girls, and it wasn't Mary who was making the money. It was Joseph. And so when she says, I'm going to educate them, I'm going to get them tutors, they're going to learn all these languages, they're going to learn how to read and write, they're going to get piano lessons. He paid for that.
Yeah. And the money came from somewhere, and the money came from him.
The money came from him. And so they were given something extraordinary,
Yeah.
something that was not afforded to most people. And they took full advantage. They did not waste the chance. They learned everything they could. And I kind of think that, as you know, they protected him. They protect, you know, the Smiths protected them. Um, and when they were emancipated, Joseph Smith basically let them go. He said, "You're free."
Mhm.
But they chose to stay with them, so they could not have been being treated too poorly,
As I say,
because
that's a powerful statement right there, that they have the ability to walk away if they choose to, and they chose to stay.
mhm,
I know in some senses, in some cases and stuff like that, there was a bit of fear to step out into a brand new world, having to do it all yourself and stuff like that. So I'm sure that could have a little bit to play into it, but
they'd
I
already
don't,
lived in a scary world.
yeah, I don't see them making that choice because of that in this scenario for them, because you're right. They've already lived a nightmare of a life up
Right.
until then.
What else
So
could possibly scare them?
exactly, exactly. So I think it's pretty telling, the fact that they stay behind with Joseph and Mary Smith. Mary Smith, I like her. She's
I do
like,
too.
be damned. I'm educating at a
She
time when
did,
I
and
shouldn't
she
be
decided.
educating. I'm like, I like that.
Yeah, I like Mary Smith in this too, and there's not a whole lot you can find out about her except for the fact that she just fell in love with these girls, and she decided that everybody deserved an education, and she was going to give them as much education as they wanted, as much as they were going to learn, they could learn. She was going to let them learn.
Yeah.
And you know, she bought their clothes, and she gave them etiquette lessons, so that they could. This is going to sound awful. At the time, enslaved or newly freed African American people were not accepted still in places that white people were.
Yeah.
Even though the law said they could be there. But the people said they couldn't. So she made sure that Millie and Christine could walk into any room and be as accepted as they could be.
Yes, they could be. Yeah. That's the hard part. Yeah.
So she wanted to make sure that if they walked in,
they could hold their own.
They could hold their own. That's right.
If they were approached, if they were interacted with in some way, they could hold their own.
That's
I appreciate her for that. That's an amazing woman at a time when that was obviously highly looked down.
She could have gone to jail for it.
Yep.
It was against the law.
Yeah.
She didn't care. She's like, screw it, Joseph, give me the checkbook. We're going to hire a tutor. And here's something else. Like I said, before you get too upset with Joseph B. Smith.
No, I'm not anymore.
They helped. He helped the girls with how to save their money, how to, properly, I won't say invest because I didn't find anything saying invest, but he said, what I found was that they said that Joseph Smith helped them to manage their money.
Right.
Because if you think about it, they probably couldn't even do math until Mary had hired the tutors for them. Being enslaved people, they had probably never really handled money.
Yeah.
So they really had no idea of how money worked, how commerce worked. Joseph Smith taught them. And he eventually turned all their money over to them. It's like, okay, here you go. I've taught you everything I can teach you. And they bought land.
Yeah.
Which that's my favorite
part. I love these kinds of stories. A time, people. How am I going to word this? People surpassing expectations or coming out of, well, in this case, literal bonds of slavery, to rise above the status quo of the time and actually succeed at doing it when a time they're not supposed to be, quote unquote, not supposed to be succeeding at the level that Millie Christine is. I love these kind of stories.
I do too. Like
that's why I'm going to brand them with a baddie, because come on now, that's baddie energy right there.
And one of the things, and I did not put it in the story, but Millie, the more quiet, shy of the two twins, Millie was on the left. She was the shorter of the two. She was described as such a delight that everyone who met her loved her. And she was described as just exuding this warmth. Now, Christine, she was described as being lively, that she would make you laugh, and that people adored to listen to her tell stories. Two very different personalities and one body. I just fell so in love with them. I know I'm getting all weepy. Yeah. I hope I did her story justice. I hope.
Oh, absolutely.
I hope that everybody listening enjoyed it. And so, Blake, would you like to give your final thoughts on Millie Christine McKoy?
I loved it. I think it's great. I love the turnaround. I don't hate Joseph Smith as much as I said earlier. I'll take back my words. I'll eat my words. But powerful story. Amazing story. These are the kind of stories I wish were pushed more out there about people, specifically women, specifically Black women, who are rising above a status quo at a time when they shouldn't have been, quote unquote, shouldn't have been by societal standards. I loved it. I thought it was great. Awesome ending, because at first I was unsure how I was going to feel about this. But this one turned out good. I enjoyed it. It was really good.
Well, and my final thoughts are, when I found this story, I couldn't stop digging. And again, it's frustrating. I wish I had more to tell you about those missing years when they had been kidnapped. I wish I had more to tell you about what she did on the stage and all the places that she performed. But because at that time, being an enslaved person, not many records were kept. And even when she emerged as the two-headed nightingale and chose to step back on the stage, there's not a lot of documentation. The main things that we have about her is her purchase of land. And that was something that was so extremely rare to be a newly freed person, African American, and a woman. And to be able to buy land, that was truly the top of the tower, because it was only men who were landowners. And like you said, you go get that money, Millie Christine. I'm here for it. I love telling you her story. And so, Blake, with that, why don't you tell them everything they need to know?
All right, a few different announcements here, and then we'll wrap this up. If you want to support the show directly, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/EVP podcast. For just $5 a month, you'll unlock over 500 Patreon exclusive videos, including the pre and post broadcast, which are the 30 minutes before and the 30 minutes after this live broadcast. So you do get an additional hour with us each week. And your support from this goes directly back to the show and towards the adventures that we bring you week after week. And if you're not sure about joining Patreon, try it risk-free with our 7-day free trial. Make sure you stay connected with us. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and many more by searching Everything Vaguely Paranormal and looking for that green sound wave. And remember, you can catch us live every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our Eventbrite page to be notified when public investigation tickets go on sale. We still have 3 events at the Old Park Hotel, which are going to be 2-night investigations. So you are going to have access to the building for roughly about 40 hours worth of investigating time. That does come with a bed, a shower, AC and or heat, depending on which event you go to. There is a kitchen with a refrigerator as well as electricity. You get it all. It's a paranormal investigator's dream come true. We're also working on several other different locations, so make sure you go subscribe to that Eventbrite page and to get that notification. We are also going to be making an appearance around the country at a couple of spots. Besides our investigations, we will be at the Bearded Brothers event at Broadhead Manor on June the 6th. We are also going to be headed back to the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, which we will be posting about dates and times and all of that coming up. And we are also going to be headed back to Phenomicon up in Vernal, Utah, which was a blast last year, which is roughly about a week-long convention with some of the top UFO, cryptid, and paranormal individuals out there. So amazing. Great speakers. We had a blast. So to make all this easier, we're going to add all of these links into our link tree, which will be on the Everything Vaguely Paranormal Facebook and X profiles Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, as well as in all of our show notes for you audio listeners, where you can simply search linktr.ee/Everything Vaguely Paranormal. We are grateful for your continued support. Every like, comment, share, and download does keep these adventures alive. So if you do have a favorite episode, share it with your friends. One of the easiest things you can do to help out our show and its rankings is wherever you get your audio from, head over there and download our entire catalog and leave us a review. That's all you got to do. If you have a story, comment, or question, or you'd like to be a guest on the show or have us as guests on your show, email us at theevppod@gmail.com. That is THEEVPPOD@gmail.com.
Go like, share, and subscribe to that YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up. Say hello. Let us know you were here. So we want to thank you guys for joining us tonight on Everything Vaguely Paranormal. I'm Shelley. I don't even know what my name is. Let's try this again.
Try it again, girl.
For myself, I'm Shelley Pruitt, my partner in the paranormal, Mr. Blake Smith. And as always, we will see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.